There's something going on in the chat.
Scott Summers, can you hear me?
I can, Jamie. How are you?
We're doing well. Everybody, this is the family lawyer that gave out that amazing statement about 25 minutes ago. Welcome, Scott. You've had a busy day.
I've had a very busy day and a very informative day. Um, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to sign on earlier, but I've been told that there has been some statements made that this and that was on the audio and video from the EMTs, and based on the little bit that I've heard, it is absolutely incorrect. And one of the reasons I put out that statement is I understand what people are doing, and I understand why they're doing it. But please be responsible in what you are doing. This family is suffering incredibly. And one of the things I said in my statement is we now know exactly what happened. We may never know why, but we know exactly what happened. We know exactly what was said. We know exactly when it was said. So let me kind of paint the picture. Um, First off, this prosecutor had zero obligation to give us any information whatsoever. So the idea that the public is somehow entitled to see this video is absolutely and unequivocally wrong. We have no right to see the video until everything is done. This prosecutor, the other thing I want to say just right off the bat, um, she is in an incredibly difficult position. She has all of the information and has had a huge amount of information from the very beginning. And she would like nothing more than to step out on the sidewalk with these people that are, and I don't know that I want to call it a protest. You know, I'm not the one that's organizing it. I'm not the one that's um, naming it. And we all appreciate what they're doing because as long as they do it, John Lucas's name and memory stays alive. I view it as more of a rally than a protest.
Yep.
Um, there are people who are angry because they don't have information. There are people who are angry because wrong information was given out from the beginning. Um, that is perfectly okay. And I would question if they weren't angry. Um, so, what has happened up to this point, there is nothing at all wrong with it. And those people who have given their time and their effort and their money to go out and keep John's name alive are salt of the earth people who have the best intentions, and the family appreciates, and I appreciate everything that they have done and everything that they continue to do. But one of the things that I just feel it's necessary to say is we have now been um, provided information that clears the questions. One of the things that people have said because of the necessary lack of communication is that Deb Rusnick, the prosecuting attorney, and the sheriff's department have been sitting on their ass not doing anything. That is absolutely not accurate. Um, Deb Rusnick has been working this case. Frankly, I may have been guilty of a little bit of that too, but because of my profession, because of my training, I would never express that because I understand how this process works. I understand that we don't want her to rush out and charge someone, and I want to talk about that a little bit too. But I didn't even understand the extent that Deb Rusnick and her team includes the Kanawha County Sheriff's Department, has been working round the clock on this case. I mean, when I say they have a pile of evidence collected, they have a pile of evidence collected. I mean, I now have spent, so I met with the prosecutor, me and my co-counsel, David Moy, and David, I might have mentioned this the other day, David is a good friend of mine. We work these cases together a lot. David is a former West Virginia State Trooper, a former prosecutor, and he is a criminal defense lawyer. David understands, and David's been doing this almost as long as I have, 27 years or something. He understands that process. So David and I had gathered some information that we didn't think the prosecutor's office had. So we asked the prosecutor if we could give that to her. So we went to her on Monday and provided her with the information and just kind of said, hey, can we get a preview of what we're going to be able to see tomorrow? She said, absolutely. And she sat down with Dave and I and said, whatever you want to see, I will show you. You know, unless there's some ethical prohibition against it. And, you know, we didn't know what she had, but what she has done, I mean, the amount of surveillance, or not surveillance, security videos she has body cam from every law enforcement officer that was there and arrived on scene, and sometimes multiple versions of it. They've obtained statements from many people. They, of course, have an inordinate amount of physical evidence. They confiscated the ambulance and took it to the facility and went over the ambulance with a fine-tooth comb. You know, again, I'm not a criminal guy. So, you know, what I see on TV is, you know, who knows how true that is. But the photographs I saw, I mean, we're literally talking photograph of the rear of the ambulance with a tape measure to see how high off the ground it is. I mean, a thorough documentation of that ambulance. Photographs under the ambulance. We, out of respect for John, we do not want to see photographs of John and his injuries. I told the prosecutor, you know, like I've said before, I mean, I've known this family for a very long time. You know, I consider myself close friends with John's father, David. David's parents, Betty and Roy Lucas, and I've said it many times. In my 61 years of existence on this earth, I don't know that I have met a finer man than Roy Lucas. And the rest of the family is not far behind. So sorry, I got off on a tangent. I'm a little bit, you know, it's been an emotional day to say the least.
Yeah.
But Deb Rusnick did something for the family that I think is probably close to being unprecedented. Again, she had no obligation to do what she did. No one is entitled to see what she's shown us. One of the things that's got me a little bit, not a little bit, a lot aggravated is people will come on to a show like yours and say, we now know that the girls said we've just did the community a favor. That is complete and utter bullshit. Was not said anywhere in the 35 minutes of the video that we saw. Please, for the love of God and for this family, stop spreading false information. One of the things well, actually, I didn't say it because I erased it because I couldn't find a kind way to say it, but I will say it here. Unless you hear it from me, from the prosecutor's office, or directly from the family's mouth, it is not a fact. This family has just suffered so much, and they need to rest. They need some peace. Please do not hound them and ask them, what did the video show? When they're ready to speak, they will speak. And they have been given permission to speak. Deb Rusnick did not tell them, don't go out and tell the folks what you saw. Basically, if they wanted to sit down and they wanted to have a press conference and give a play-by-play of everything they saw, they're able to do that. But please do not ask them to do that. Today was a horrible day for them, a horrible day. They don't need to keep reliving this. Unfortunately, they're going to have to. Theoretically, there will be a criminal trial. There will certainly be a significant civil lawsuit. But one of the things that, that kind of compelled me to come on here, in addition to the, just the pure falsehoods that are being spread, I saw a post today where, everybody has been complaining because the family doesn't have information. And now all of a sudden the family has information and people are complaining because the family was, quote, forced to sit down and watch this. The family wasn't forced to do anything. The family wanted to see this. And in fact, there were some things the family did not want to see, and they didn't see them. This was a very respectful meeting we had today. It was a very informative meeting we had today. And one thing, and David Lucas, he was there, and there were some other members of the family there. I'm not going to share who it was, but when we came in, we walked through the people at the rally because the family, again, wanted to express their heartfelt thanks for what people are doing to keep John's memory alive. But when we were over, the family didn't want to do that, with the exception of David Lucas. And I told David, and the prosecutor and the sheriff's staff that was there were able to get everybody out of the building without having to face anybody. But David Lucas wanted to go out the front door the way he came in. And he wanted to, number one, thank the people that were out there. He wanted to show his appreciation for what they're doing. But the other thing he said, and I don't ever want this to get lost in the noise, David Lucas relayed to them what he said to the prosecutor at the end of our meeting. And you got to keep in mind, this was an incredibly emotional meeting. At the end of the meeting, David Lucas went up to the prosecutor, Deborah Rusnick, and said, "I owe you an apology. I misjudged you, and I was wrong, and please accept my apology." I think that I probably don't need to see anything else about that. That speaks volumes in and of itself. I will be releasing some specific information. I have a good friend who I trust, who's in the media, that I have spoken to, and I believe that in the morning she will be publishing a story that I assume will have quotes and information from me. Once that's out, Jamie, I'm happy to come on and answer questions. There is a lot of misinformation out there. I mean, a lot. Well, let me just give you a little tidbit. One of the assumptions that everyone has made, and at some point, maybe I was in that same boat, but it's a question for everyone. Why is it that these two ladies chose to leave the safety of their EMS station to go out and be in an atmosphere where they said there's somebody out there loitering around? That's completely false. These folks were never in the EMS station, never. They were coming back from a call. They're driving down Main Avenue. They come up, and John casually walks out into the road. Just not running. And this is before the video that we had released earlier. So this first encounter, John walks out into the road behind the Tudors, right there by the basketball court. He walks out into the road. He turns, he faces, he kind of holds his hand up to stop the ambulance. He turns, he faces the ambulance. He squats down in the road and he picks up something. I don't know what that was. It appeared to be a long, shiny object, for lack of a better description. The EMS people said he picked up a knife. I don't know that it was a knife. It doesn't look like a knife to me, but I wasn't there. I wasn't in the rig. I'm seeing it on video. To me, it looked like maybe it was a screwdriver. And knowing John and learning more about John, and this is speculation, which I said I was not going to do, but it could have very well been an object that John saw in the road. He saw the ambulance coming. He knew they were going to run over the object, so he said, "Hold on a minute." He bent down, he picked up the object, he stepped back out of the road, and then I know you can't see me because it's after the day I've had, you don't want to see me, but John steps out of the road, and then he casually just kind of waves them through. Like, "I've removed it, go on." That is not what the occupants of the vehicle, of the ambulance, thought. Okay, I don't want to share, what was said or anything at this point, but that is a question that will ultimately be up to 12 of our peers who sit in judgment of whoever is ultimately charged, to determine, what the intent was, The pictures are clear. Like I said, we now know exactly what happened. We will never know why it happened. So that is just one thing that would have been really kind of nice to know, because there's rumors out there that, well, the first thing that was reported, the guy's chasing us with a knife. Well, that didn't happen. I mean, it clearly didn't happen. There is no instance where John chases anyone with any weapon. The other thing I'll tell you is, fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know if it was you or somebody else asked me, Jamie, do you want to see the dash cam from the ambulance? Well, from a legal standpoint, yes, I want to see that. From a personal standpoint, I've already seen the impact and the ultimate killing of John from a distance. I don't want to see it from 2 feet away. I have now seen it from 2 feet away. I can tell you that my interpretation of what I saw, now I've seen the full 35-minute video 2 times now. And I can tell you from my perspective, and again, the prosecutor was phenomenal. She said, you tell me when you want to stop, you tell me when you want to zoom in. From my perspective, ultimately, it's not my decision to make. Again, it's 12 people of our peers. John did not have a weapon in his hand when he was struck by that ambulance. I mean, it's just not visible. It's just not there. Trying to think of, what else I want to share at this point. Well, let me just ask you, Jamie, do you have any questions? And if I can answer them, I will answer them.
No, but can I pay you $1 to be my attorney for about 5 seconds?
Scott, thank you for coming on here
Yes.
Well,
and
thank
sharing what you have.
Yes.
Thank you, Krista. And I mean, I saw you today, and I think you could probably back me up what Mr. Lucas said when he came out.
Absolutely.
He was very thankful, and I can tell you that the atmosphere in the room when the family and I started the meeting with the prosecutor was completely different when the meeting ended several hours later.
Praise God.
It was very informative. It was very painful. These folks need a minute to breathe. They need a minute to relax. They need a minute to process. I don't know that they have been fully able to grieve John
No.
in their own privacy.
Right. There's no way.
And they need that. And they need that.
They do.
Scott, I'm blown away that people are calling the family, asking them what they saw and heard. And that's just, I'm gonna get spicy, but I'm gonna tell you something. If you're calling the family, if you're messaging this family, you need to stop. If they want to talk to you, they'll reach out to you.
Well,
And
and
it's
here,
not out of disrespect of the family. They just don't need that.
well, and here's the other thing. I mean, here's a real practical concern. Laura and her husband work in the community, and I don't think she would mind me sharing this. She wants to get back to work, but she is not looking forward to it because she knows that everybody that comes in there is going to want to talk about what they've heard, what they haven't heard, what so-and-so's sister's brother-in-law's ex-boyfriend's dog's mom said about the driver or the driver's parents or something else. They just don't want to talk about it until they're ready to talk about it. So please, by all means, continue to be inquisitive. Continue to honor John. Continue to keep John's name out there. But let the family grieve.
Real quick, if I could just say something and go rest, Scott, because you've earned.
Oh no, I'm fine. I mean, it's hard to say how much longer I'll be up tonight because I say no rest for the weary.
Here's the deal. I'm not going to mention names because it's not the time or place, and nor is it any of my business. But there's a couple creators or whatever you want to call them that are out here spreading crazy stuff. I listened to one today, and I'm like, dude, you're probably going to get sued for libel if I was on the other end of that thing. Guys, if you're in here, if you're following people that are talking all this stuff, or if you have a guest on that talks this stuff, somebody needs to show some receipts. And Scott, it's unfortunate, but they go from a creator or creators that are espousing all this stuff that aren't in the mix, that aren't in the know like you are, and then other folks are coming out of that and going to somewhere else and spreading that rumor. So here's how we're going to handle it. Everyone knows this, and Scott, if I'm going to hire you for 5 seconds, I just paid you $1. Here's the way I think I want to handle it, and if you guys in the group agree, let me know with yellow hearts, and if you don't, put black hearts. I don't care. We know the story, and I no longer, as of now, want to discuss the John Curtis Lucas case, only if somebody comes up and says, "Hey, here's some dates of a rally." And I've called it a rally, and then I called it a protest. It's a rally.
Right.
I don't think we need to keep espousing. I don't think anyone on any platform should continue this behavior, and if they do, they should have a problem. Because let me tell you, this attorney is in the know. He's in the mix. He's fighting for this family, and he's protecting the family. And as of right now, I will no longer, in good conscience, debate what happened versus what didn't happen. Because I'm going to tell you something. If you do, you're not responsible after hearing from this lawyer. It's just not good. So, Scott, that's my word. And Chris, I see you're nodding. So, if you ask about the John Curtis case, it's to be announced. We don't know when if charges will come. But I think that's the direction I'm going. If it's about a rally, or if it's something with the family that wants to say something, or Scott Summers, other than that, guys, we're done with this case as to dissecting it, because now we've heard it from the horse's mouth. Scott, anything? I mean, anything I can say any clearer than that?
Yeah. So I don't want you to necessarily be done with the case, because I think what you're doing, there's a reason why I come to your live, and a reason why I come and speak on your live.
Okay.
I know I can speak. I know I can speak unfiltered. I know that you will listen and you won't try to spin. But a couple of things I want to talk about, and I am more than happy if you want to schedule a time or an evening that I can just answer questions. I'm happy to do that. It won't be in the next couple of evenings, because I just don't want it to be, frankly. But one thing I want to say about the criminal stuff. So, and my guess is, and Deb Rusnick didn't say this, but if I were her, one of my biggest frustrations would be I can't go correct people's misunderstanding or just plain misstatement of the law. There has obviously been a huge outcry as to why these folks have not been arrested. And I haven't really said anything, but I feel like I can say it now. And I don't blame anybody for asking that question because we see it on the news all the time. You know, somebody runs through a crowd of people and they kill all these people and they're arrested on scene. Why wouldn't the same thing apply here? And I'll tell you why. Because a prosecutor's job has to be performed within very finite and specific confines of the law. And again, this is me, not Deb Rusnick speaking. I believe that with the video alone, the video that we released alone, and certainly the video that the prosecutor and law enforcement have had literally since the day of the accident. I won't call it an accident. Literally since the day of John's killing. There is a particular charge that is almost a no-brainer. However, in West Virginia, that charge is a misdemeanor. And I don't blame the general public for not understanding this, but I think it's important for them to know. If Deb Rusnick rushed out and charged with the charge that I think is easily provable, and that's essentially involuntary manslaughter. You know, that sounds, oh yeah, absolutely. At a minimum, that's that. Well, guess what? In West Virginia, involuntary manslaughter is a misdemeanor.
Yep.
Punishable by up to 1 year in jail. I think it is beyond pale that this is an easily provable criminal case in that regard. However, if Deb Rusnick rushed out and arrested that woman on scene, she couldn't do it without probable cause of a crime that she could prove occurred. At that point, the only probable cause that she could prove is involuntary manslaughter. So let's say she was arrested that night. Well, under our system of justice, you know, everybody's heard about the right to a speedy trial. Under our system of justice, once the charge is made and the arrest is accomplished, the clock starts immediately ticking. And then in a very short time frame, and I'm ignorant as to what it is, but I think it's like 10 days. They have to present the suspect or defendant or whatever you want to call them for arraignment in front of a magistrate judge. Any criminal defense lawyer worth their salt would go to that arraignment and plead guilty to the misdemeanor charge of voluntary manslaughter. Once that charge is made, jeopardy attaches. The prosecutor can't then go back and say, oh, wait a minute, I've also now developed this felony charge. So theoretically, within 10 days, 2 weeks of an arrest on a misdemeanor involuntary manslaughter charge, the defendant can be arraigned, plead guilty to the misdemeanor, and the criminal case is over. And that's it. End of story.
Yeah.
We don't want that to happen. We want Deb Rusnick to be able to build her case for the highest criminal offense she can. Now, I'll just tell you from my view of the video, and this is just, again, my view, not my decision to make. This case, Deb Rusnick will never be able to come up with probable cause to prove a first-degree murder case. It's just simply not going to happen. So what people need to understand is those higher murder charges are specific intent crimes. First degree murder, Deb Rusnick has to prove, among other things, the intent to kill, not the intent to maim, not the intent to run somebody over,
Right.
but she has to prove that the driver of that ambulance intended by running over John to kill him. That's hard enough based on the video that I have seen. The second thing that has to be proven on a first degree murder charge is not only do you have to prove intent, but then she has to prove that there was an opportunity to reflect on that intent. And that just doesn't exist. I mean, it simply does not exist. And then we kind of work down the typical murder charges. And as we go down the charges, the burden of proof on the prosecutor is lesser and lesser. And let me say this. For this family, I want justice in whatever form we can get it. However, our criminal justice system is made difficult for a reason. If you are charged with a crime, a felony, for instance, the government is going to deprive you of your liberty and many other things that we enjoy as free people in the United States. We do not want the government to be able to do that willy-nilly. We want the government to be able to have to prove it. And one of the fellows in the prosecutor's office today made a fantastic point. So the prosecutor's job is incredibly difficult because they have to convince 12 people beyond a reasonable doubt that they have met every single element of every single charge that they are seeking a conviction on. Whereas the defense lawyer only has to convince one person that it may not be the way it seems. And it is, it's frustrating when you're on this side of a case. But I promise you, if you ever find yourself on the other side of a case, you want this system to work, you want it to work appropriately, and you want it to protect your constitutional rights. So this is frustrating. For the family, it is maddening, but this is the system that we have, and this is the system that we must live in, because if this system goes away, we're all in trouble.
You know, it's strange you came in and said that. I had one of my guys, career cop, Scott, came on a couple of days ago, and he didn't nearly do as good a job as you did, but he kind of was like going that route. And I was watching the chat. The chat was about to come down and run him over in the state of Florida because they didn't like what he was putting down. And you're 100% right. And we even talked about this is the system we have. It's the only system we have. And my guys get on here, and a lot of people don't like what they say, but Scott, the cases, if they're investigated right, it takes time.
Right.
And
Right.
it's not an hour TV crime show minus commercials. You're at 45 minutes, and that case is, you know, the crime's committed. They make the arrest. They go to trial. They get the conviction. The guy goes to prison in 45 minutes, and that's not the real world.
And it shouldn't be.
No.
I mean, it absolutely shouldn't be. If we ever find ourselves wrongly accused of a crime, we need the system to work. And we do not want Deb Rusnick to half-ass this. And I mean, I said it before, I'll say it again. I cannot say strongly enough that I believe Deb Rusnick has worked her ass off on this case and that she will absolutely prosecute this case within the confines that she is able to do so. And she has gathered a mountain of information. One of the things I see scrolling up in the questions is, are there going to be criminal charges pending? I can't really comment a lot on that. What I can tell you is that one of the things we did today was go over. Hold on a second. One of the things we did go over was the potential criminal charges, the evidence that matches up to that. Deb Rusnick cannot, nor would she comment, nor should she comment on any strategy she has for moving forward. However, I firmly believe that in the not too distant future, we are going to see criminal charges. And that's for people other than me to decide. But based on the information that we learned today, I believe that we are going to see, well, let me state it a different way. We are going to see progress on the criminal side of this case. That's probably the better way to state it.
Man, you unpacked a lot, and the people in the chat are so grateful for you coming in. You bring calm in the storm. My goodness, I'm calm. Krista, he's got the magic wand here. But the community is just so grateful, Scott, that you take the time. It's something after 11:30. You've been working your rear end off, but you came in here, and I think you calmed down the flames. I don't know how to address the misinformation. I don't know how we do that. Other than just stopping people at the gate and checking their ticket, and you better have receipts, or I don't know, Scott. It's social media. People do social media for clicks, clickbait, whatever. We've all seen it. We got conned in here the other night from some guy going to give 10,000 T-shirts away.
Well, I heard that. I was watching, and then
broke our hearts.
I assume it's the one where you were asking for the web page.
Yes.
Yeah, and I searched too, and I thought, I really hope that this isn't some guy just trying to get clout on TikTok. And it really breaks my heart to know that he was a fraud.
Yeah.
He may or may not have some mental thing going on. I don't know, Scott.
Does Laura know that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because she was incredibly excited, and I don't blame her.
We all were.
Listen, that's what I said today, Scott. That's exactly what I said today. I said it'd be one thing to say that to me, but when you say that to Laura, I was infuriated.
And after hearing her reaction,
yes,
she was just beyond words.
Grateful. Yes.
Yeah, that's just cruel. There is no other word. That is just cruel and demented.
Absolutely.
There should be a crime for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I
don't want to put you on the spot, but I got to ask you a question.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think you give the community some credibility on our end. We don't get into the conspiracy stuff. I get a little spicy and get aggravated because we hear all this information. Moving forward, and I know you can't advise anybody of what to do because it's not your position, but we want to keep talking about this case, but I don't want to dissect it. Now that we've heard you, there's no sense in dissecting what may have happened, what did happen, who sat on the information. Now we know the truth. So there's no excuse for me or anyone else that can push that button that goes live to spread the bullshit. Sorry for the language.
Right. No, it's absolutely correct. And I just can't say it enough. Now, the people who are entitled to know exactly what happened. And to continue to guess and I don't want to say make up things, speculate, sensationalize, whatever you want to call it. The people that continue to do that are only hurting the family. I mean, and I'll tell you something else that we haven't, I don't know if you've touched on it, but I haven't said it, is it's getting to the point now where it could really create problems in the criminal process.
With the jury, potential jury.
Exactly. There is a serious issue with being able to see the jury. I'm conflicted in cases like this all the time. I love the fact that it is getting out there and it's not being swept under the rug. But when you have an issue of tainting the jury, whether I don't think anybody's setting out to do that. But when we have a jury, we want them to literally be hearing things for the first time. And again, one of the guys in the prosecutor's office today said, he used the funnel example of how evidence comes in. There's this huge universe of evidence at the top of the funnel. Then it funnels down to what's relevant. Then it funnels down to what matters in the charges. And then it funnels down to the very bottom with what's admissible.
Yeah.
And, this stuff, and it works both ways. This ridiculous stuff out there that John Lucas was a child abuser and sexual molester. Not true. Absolutely not true. That could taint a jury, just like people saying, these, again, I don't want to get into speculation. We deal in facts, and facts is all I have to live my life by. And it's not only important in the criminal case, but it's also important in the civil case. This thing is far from over. And just please be patient.
This will be the last time I speak on it, but there, even some folks in my community have followed a couple, and I am not going to mention names. We know who they are. Oh, this person's live. Oh, and I'm telling you, man, I've been into some of these lives, Scott. I would be terrified if I was the persons creating that fabrication nonsense of being sued for libel. And here's the deal. I can't go into my community and say, hey, beware, don't follow this guy. Then it looks like, okay, you're jealous or what have you.
Right.
But it doesn't, Scott, if you're in this business for 15 minutes, you hear some of this stuff, it's not true.
Right.
But people buy into it for sensationalism. And I don't know. I think, I'll tell you this much. We're going to improve greatly on how we move forward on any of this stuff. But I think we've got a good reputation, Scott. We don't do the conspiracy stuff and the crazy.
Right. Well, and I want to say again, I don't want people to stop talking about this. It's important that John's name remain out there because he was incredibly loved.
Yeah.
He will be incredibly missed, and it's good to keep his memory alive. What I caution people is, let's stop. The real facts are bad enough. We don't need to sensationalize anything. I don't want you to stop talking about it. I want to be able to get information out there, and I will, because we have a lot of information. But I also don't want to put information out there that will interrupt, interfere, or anyhow negatively impact the criminal process. The facts are the facts are the facts. And unlike a lot of cases, we know what happened.
Yeah.
We don't know why, but we know what.
Yes.
I've got to say something. The years that I've been in this business, and Scott, I've been in the private sector doing defense work, working for civil lawyers, done a bunch of cases, both sides. I've never, ever heard of a prosecutor opening the door to a civil lawyer to come in and look at everything they have. I've never heard of that.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah, and let me just say, she didn't do it for me. She did it for the family, and specifically to correct some of the stuff that's out there. And I want to be careful what I say here, and to help the family understand why her charging decision is so difficult. Because the public has seen one video. That one video does not tell the story. And it certainly doesn't tell any part of the story from the perspective of the people in the cab of that ambulance on that night. And we can't ignore that. Again, the crimes that everybody wants these folks to be charged with is a specific intent crime. Based on what I saw, that's not as clear as I would like for it to be. I think there's enough there. Ultimately, it's not my decision, but Deb Rusnick has a very hard job ahead of her. But I'm confident. She was very compassionate with the family today, very compassionate. And I asked her, well, I know because I live here and I've seen her, and I know how she is in trial. To talk to her today, you wouldn't think that she had that in her. And I said, at one point, I said, Deb, I think it's important for the family to know that when you're in trial, you're going to remove your Deb Rusnick compassionate hat, and you're going to put on I'm a total bitch prosecutor hat. And that's what's going to happen.
Yep. Brother, you brought the receipts, and I read that as we were talking before you came on. I scrolled through and I saw your release, and I started reading it, and I'm like, okay, there's some people better stop running their yippers, but they better watch this and read this guy's statement. I cannot thank you enough for what you're doing for this family and the community. But more importantly, the fight is for John.
Right.
And thank you. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. It is all for the family. I hesitate to say anything because, this may come as a surprise to you, but lawyers have a bad name. And all too often, when a lawyer steps up and speaks, people are like, oh, look at that ambulance chaser and all that stuff. I don't want that to soil this process and John's memory. I am involved in this case because I am a personal friend of John's father. It just so happens that I've spent a career doing this kind of work. And the other thing that I think is kind of funny, if you go to my webpage and you look at it, you'll think, what the hell's this guy doing with this case? Because several years ago, I made the decision that I had worked entirely too hard in my life and it was time to slow down. And I always said when I got out of law school, I was going to go do great things. And then at some point, I was going to quit and go to work in a small town and trade wills for bushels of corn. Just do it as a hobby. So I did. I left the big firms, went out on my own, thinking I was going to relax. And I have not been able to do that because, I have tried to transition my practice a little bit. And other than helping people like the Lucas family, one of the other things that I do, and people say I'm insane for doing this, one of the other things I do is I do divorce mediations. And that may say something about my inner insanity. I don't know, but I do them because in my mind, if I am mediating a divorce case that involves children and I am able to keep those folks from going to court and fighting over their kids are the only ones that hurt in there. And I've said often since I have been doing divorce mediations, in 30 years of practice, divorce mediations is probably the single most important thing I've done as a lawyer. Because in the end, what it helps are the kids. And the kids are our future. I mean, it's, like I say, I'm sure people, if they go look at my webpage or even my TikTok page, I mean, I'm telling dad jokes for God's sakes.
I wouldn't look. I like them.
And there's a whole story of how that got started. But anyway, I am extremely fortunate in my life and my career. I have a fantastic family. I have great friends. I've had a very rewarding career, and I've been able to help families like the Lucases. And this one is particularly touching because I love this family, and I've known them for a very long time.
Never met them. I feel like I've known them forever, but you can tell the strength from families that go through these horrible journeys in life by losing a son or daughter by the way they act afterwards. And they act with dignity, grace. They're just a family of great faith in God. And that everybody in the chat are just blown away that this family is operating after the fact of losing their son to this tragic, the way they're acting. So,
Me too. I couldn't do it. I could not do it.
No. So, Scott, I don't know, man. Krista, this guy, he calms the storms, buddy.
Thank you. So I want to ask real quick, Scott, and I value your opinion and what you say. Mm-hmm. So should we even continue to protest? I don't feel like there's a need in it.
That's a great question. And, the one thing that I've learned is words matter. And, I don't know, even when it started, I don't know that this is as much of a protest as it is
a rally. Right. It's basically saying John Lucas. We want his name. We want people to say his name. Remember.
Yeah. The one thing I will say is, the protest rally, whatever, started at the prosecutor's office for a very good reason. Nobody had any answers. Everybody who's not in the know didn't understand what was going on.
Yes, but now we do.
I hope that as of now, people understand that Deb Rusnick, the Kanawha County prosecutor, has not been sitting on her ass. Deb Rusnick, the Kanawha County prosecutor, has been busting her ass.
Yep.
From day one. My guess is,
was very clear about that today.
Yeah, my guess is that she got the call when law enforcement first figured out what was going on. That's the way it typically works. So my guess is, from the wee morning hours of Thursday, April 16th, Deb Rusnick picked up her sword of justice, and she's been swinging it hard ever since. I will tell you, though, that, as a little kind of funny aside, Deb Rusnick hears you. As you probably know, Deb Rusnick's office is right there in the front.
Oh, she hears us. Okay.
Oh, there's no way she doesn't. And I will tell you that over in the courthouse, I got across the street and diagonal from where the rally is, I got a text from another judge today that said, "Scott, your protesters are out again and they've got a bullhorn today."
Listen, I don't even need that horn, okay? I don't even need that.
So, but I want to answer your very good question. Do you even need to protest? My opinion is you do not need to protest. Do you need to keep John's name alive? Absolutely. While the purpose and the intent of the protest was a good one, we now know that it wasn't necessary. But it's accomplished. I mean, I've seen it. I mean, I live in Charleston. I drive down there all the time. I'm in court all the time. And just standing there a little bit today, it's not just you all on the street. I mean, every probably third car that drives by there is honking in support.
Yes.
But is it necessary to do it at the prosecutor's office? My honest opinion is it is not.
You know what I would suggest, Scott? I may get some backfeed on this one. You know what I would do? I would take those Justice for Johns or whatever shirts we got, you guys. I don't have any skin in the game. I'm in Florida. I'd go to that community center with those shirts on and play basketball with the kids.
Yeah. Well, and I saw something else. It might have been Joe Nida, and if I'm assigning credit wrong, I apologize. But I read somewhere something about, let's all line up around down the route, because I'm telling you, the thing that will, I don't want to say haunt, that might be too strong a word, but the thing that will haunt me for the rest of my life is driving that 1.9 miles, knowing, and because try to hold your breath driving that route. It is very difficult. And, one of the things I do in jury trials sometime when you're trying to express the importance of time is you say, okay, I'm going to start a stopwatch and we're going to remain silent for whatever the length of time is. And once people get to about 10 seconds, it becomes very uncomfortable and they start fidgeting. I promise you, it took a hell of a lot longer than 10 seconds.
Oh, I know that.
Drive this 1.9 miles. Mm-hmm. The other thing I want to throw out there to correct, and it was a misunderstanding that I had as well. Okay, I was under the mistaken belief that they heard John screaming within a quarter of a mile of when they hit him. That is not accurate. we don't hear John screaming until they turn around at the bus garage.
Mm.
So the problem is with timing. The first thing that came out were those recordings of the Metro 911 calls. And it's impossible to take those because there's two separate frequencies for law enforcement and EMTs. So in those recordings, you got all this overlapping. So it's impossible to determine accurate times. In listening to all that, it sounds to me like John's hit, he's run over. We know now that he's under the ambulance. And I had always assumed that within a quarter of a mile or so, they heard him screaming. And they continued to drive another mile and a half with John screaming under that vehicle. What we know now is that they ran over John in front of the Tudors. They drove to the end of the road. They got up on 119. They drove down to the middle school. They circled through the middle school parking lot, came back down 119 to the four-way stop sign right there at Poca Valley Bank. At that point, one of the occupants says, they're on the phone with 911 by this point. One of the occupants says, our rig or truck or whatever terminology they used is making a noise. Is he under there? All right. That's the first time that the occupants of that vehicle made any indication that they thought John might be under the truck. But then later, they kind of dismissed it that John might be under the truck, because then later in the recording, both video and audio of the internal occupants of that cab, when they're on the phone with 911, they say, I don't want to say what they say. The impression I got is they believe that John is lying in front of the Dairy Queen. So this is after they're going down 119, after they've gone past the initial scene of the whatever terminology you want to apply to it, and until they make the turn into the bus garage. They turn in and they back up. When they back up is where they hear John screaming. It's also where John becomes dislodged from the undercarriage of that ambulance. Then they drive off. So they didn't drive that it's not 1.9 miles. I think it's maybe 1.2 miles or something. They didn't drive that whole time with knowing that John was screaming under the ambulance. The video clearly shows that the first time they say anything about screaming is very shortly, or maybe when John is finally released from under that ambulance. I think that's important for people to know, because to me, and I think it was important maybe for the family, but to me, it was just unfathomable how people could hear screaming and then continue to drive
Right.
all that distance. Now, let me say one other thing. I was asked today, do I believe a crime was committed? Absolutely. A crime was committed when the decision, either intentional or unintentional, was made to run over John. I mean, there's no question. And frankly, in my mind, it doesn't matter what happened up to that point. But let me be clear, never in any of this video was John ever actually harassing anyone. Never. But once they hit him, the thing that I, along with probably everyone else, has a real issue with is, why in the hell did you not stop? Because if they, and we could if all we want. My granddad used to say, if doesn't make it true. If frogs had wings, they wouldn't bump their ass every time they hopped. So we could if all we want, but if they would have stopped, like probably every other person did, John may very well be alive today. We don't know, we'll never know. But certainly his chances of survival were significantly greater. And that's what I can't wrap my head around.
Yeah, me neither. And the fact that 911 told them not once, not twice, but 4 times to stop.
That is not accurate.
Okay.
That is not accurate. Metro 911 did not tell them to stop until almost at the end. I mean, they were literally, so when they were at the bus garage and they reported hearing the scream, they were told, and it's clear on the audio, drive back to Dairy Queen. So up to that point, they had never been told to stop. Now, let me say this. I think that Metro 911 has failed everyone involved in this case. Because not once were those folks told to stop until they were already back almost to the church where they ultimately stopped. That's been reported a lot. They were told to stop twice. You've heard they were told to stop 4 times. They were not. What happened was, when they came out of the bus garage and they reported the screaming, 911 said, pull into the Napa and listen to see if you can hear him. So they circled into the Napa parking lot. They couldn't hear him. And then they drove back to where they were directed to drive back to, which was the Dairy Queen. Now, once they were told to stop, and I've got written down how much time that had elapsed in there. It was a considerable amount of time. Once they were told to stop, there were a couple places where they could have pulled off and they did not. And once they were told to stop, they pulled into the church and they continued to drive around the church lot, waiting for law enforcement to arrive. But John wasn't under the ambulance at that point. So, that is a prime example of a fact that started with the 911, the recordings of the Metro 911 dispatch conversation, where the audio says, should they stop 10-4? Should they stop if he has a knife? 10-4, they should stop. All right. Other thing we learned today is, again, these are 2 separate radio frequencies, right? EMS is on one, police department's on another. Mm-hmm. That message from law enforcement that said they should stop was never relayed through Metro 911 to the ambulance. So, this started with, they were told to stop once. And now, how far are we in now? 11 days? Now it's like the old game of telephone. Now they were told to stop 4 times.
Right.
Well, they weren't. They were only told to stop one. It was only conveyed to them one time to stop, and that wasn't until they were actually past the initial point of impact. And it's just, and Krista, I don't mean to, I'm not getting on you. I hope you don't feel that.
No, I don't feel that way at
all. But that's exactly the kind of thing that kind of gets run with and all that kind of stuff. But again, we can't lose sight of the fact that if you hit someone and you clearly run them over, you should not have to be told to stop. Why in the world do you keep driving? Now, with the video I saw today, a good criminal defense lawyer will be able to explain that.
Yeah.
You know, Scott, if I was working for the defense team on this case, if in fact their charges come, I would be all over. And I'm not going to say what I would do because I don't want to give anyone traction. But let me tell you, the prosecutor is in one hell of a position, given what you said tonight. And I have faith that she's going to do the right thing. Whatever that is, it'll be justice the way our justice system is designed to work.
I do too. And I see some people saying, ask about the audio.
Yeah, over and over and over, like you've addressed that.
What does that mean?
They're talking about the audio, what was being said, like what
On the dash cam video, I believe.
what we've been talking about the entire time.
And if there's a specific question, if I can answer it, I will happily answer it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the question I had was, did the girls know who John was?
That's a good question. And when I first spoke to the lead investigator with the sheriff's department on this, I asked that kind of question. And he made a comment. He said, with a lot of other questions I asked him, he said, I want you to see the video. That is subject to interpretation. And I thought, what does he mean it's subject to interpretation? Now, hearing the video, I understand. Or hearing the audio and seeing the video. I understand. I mean, I get it. And ultimately, like I said before, in the criminal side, this is going to be up to a jury of 12 of our peers. On the civil side, it's also going to be in the hands of a jury. I know the arguments that I would make. I'm confident that Deb Rusnick will make the arguments she needs to make. With regard to, I'm seeing in the topics, the things that they have said to each other. So I see the dispatch audio said the shoe was found around Napa. Not correct. Not correct. There is, did they talk bad about John? Well, again, what do you mean bad about John? Did they say, we did the community a favor by getting rid of him? No, they didn't say that.
That's not true.
Yeah. Did they say, I don't know. I mean, I've heard a lot of things that were said.
Right.
So someone said the ambulance dash cam said they were laughing. Again, subject to interpretation. There were times when, and what's beautiful about this is we not only have the audio, we have the video. So we can hear and we can see. Were they saying derogatory things? They were making up their story.
Yeah, so were they making, did they call anybody while they were in there? Like, for example, maybe their dad or their uncle, the people
that's a fantastic question. One of the things that I addressed in my statement is, number one, there is no relative at all to either one of these women that work in the Kanawha County Sheriff's Department or any other agency investigating this incident. One of the ladies driving, her middle name matches a middle name of a sheriff's, I think he's a sergeant, detective sergeant or something, in the sheriff's department. Obviously, people say, oh, well, there's a Middleton here and there's a Middleton there. They must be related. Well, my name is Summers, and I can tell you I have no relation to Suzanne Summers or Larry Summers in the federal government, a Summers here that is filthy rich, no relation whatsoever. But what I can also tell you is that came to the attention of the lead investigator immediately. And all these interviews are on body cam. He asked the driver, are you related, Donna Summers? Right, I'm no relation to Donna Summers either. He asked her, are you related to anyone, to the Middleton in the Kanawha County Sheriff's Department? She said no. That wasn't good enough for him. He went to Middleton and said, hey, I'm investigating this. This is the person. Your name is the same last name as hers. Is there any relation? And he said, absolutely not. I'm from New Jersey, and the only reason I'm here is because I married a West Virginia girl. None of my Middleton family resides in West Virginia. The other thing that's out there is, I believe, I haven't confirmed this on my own, but I believe that the other occupant's father holds some sort of position. I've heard fire chief, I've heard fire marshal, and that somehow he was trying to cover things up and all this. I can tell you that from what I know right now, I do not believe that that is the fact. And if he were, he is failing miserably at it, because these folks don't give a shit who these ambulance drivers, or who the ambulance driver and the passenger is related to. One of them said, and I kind of laughed, and I told him, I say this on at least a monthly basis. He's like, this is my job. This is my career. I have a family. If people think that I'm going to jeopardize that because of somebody out there, it's not going to happen. And I said, at least once a month, I say, I like you, but you're not worth losing my law license over.
Amen.
So I see some other comments here that reminds me of things that I want to address. And I'm sorry I'm keeping you all so late. It's well beyond my bedtime, but we now know a lot of facts that we didn't know before. The one thing I can say is, and this is for the civil case and not the criminal case, either there was a horrible failure in training of these two women in this ambulance, or these two women completely ignored the training that they were provided.
Right.
We know that there is no way what happened should have happened. I see a lot of questions. Do we know what they're saying in the ambulance? Yes, we know exactly what they're saying. We see them saying it. One of the things that the prosecutor has done, which is fantastic, and it will be wonderful at trial, is her IT people, because the dash cam is one cam that records forward. The other cam faces interior and records, and you could watch each of them separately. What they have been able to do is put them on the same screen so they run simultaneously. So you can see what they're seeing. At the same time, you can see their reaction to what is going on. And all of the audio is recorded. You can hear everything that's said. Some of it's garbled because there's clearly episodes of panic. There's one point where both of the occupants are both on the phone speaking to two different entities or people, or however you want to say it. So it's hard to follow what's going on. But it is all there. Deb Rusnick has analyzed it. She could probably recite it in her sleep at this point.
Yeah.
Was there bad things said about John? In my view, yes. Were they specific to John? Maybe, maybe not. To me, it is not completely clear whether they actually knew this was John. The other thing to understand is this wasn't these EMTs' normal station. So there's a lot of things that people are saying that once you know the full facts, make a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
But in my view, I think there's a comment made early on that indicates to me that at least one of the occupants of that vehicle knew John and knew it was John. Now, that's open to interpretation. Do they say there's some creepy guy lurking around? Yes, they say that. Do they? I think at one point there's a comment about, he's known to hide in dumpsters or something like that. So let's see, Scott, I just need to know if you've ever worked with Taylor George, if you see this. I don't know. I'm not sure who Taylor George is. I can't say yes or no. I mean, I've run across thousands and thousands of people in the last 30 years. Do they really seem afraid for their lives? That is another question that is open for interpretation. Hi, Laura. I want to be real careful what I say. I think words and actions tell a different story. And I think I'll leave it at that. Do I believe that they were really afraid for their lives? I don't. I mean, I don't want to apologize for it, but I don't believe they were really afraid for their lives. Words are words and actions are something else. I believe afterwards they expressed some real, genuine fear. But as one of the family members said, and I think very accurately, they fear the consequences of what they have done.
So I've had this angel mom asking to come up here most of the night. She's saying she has some really important information. Laura Jean calls her mama, Audrey Short. She wants to tell the lawyer something and somebody else. So I'm going to hop off here. I am beyond tired. Thank you so much, Scott, for coming in here. And if you guys want to let her come up here and talk, go right ahead.
Krista, are you and I squared away?
Yes. We will be there tomorrow at 4:00 to keep John's name alive. We probably won't be out there lengthy amount of time because I'm about done with it. But guess what? We will keep his name alive. And that's what we're going to do from here on out. It's not a protest for justice because I think we're going to get that, hopefully. But just to keep his name alive. Hey, good night, guys.
We appreciate you.
See you, Krista.
She's a good one, Scott.
Yes.
Scott, do we want to bring anybody up? Is tonight the night we should do that, or you want to wait?
Well, I mean, here's the way I look at it. there is no such thing as too much information. I am always interested in hearing what someone has to say.
Whoever it was, could you say something in the chat really quick so I can find you? And Laura's in here also, Scott.
Right, I saw that, and if Laura knows her and trusts her, I trust Laura. I mean, completely. And frankly, if she's got wrong information, I'd like to correct it.
Let's put her up. Hey, Angel Mom, welcome up. Thank you.
Well, yes, Laura does know me. She's in the box. Laura, tell him that you know me. I just trying to call Laura. I know she's been busy. And yes, Laura does call me her mama. Thank you, Laura. But anyway, I have a message for Laura. There's a man across from the EMT station. All I can say is he wants to talk to Laura Jean and her dad and the lawyer. He said that he has been there, watches the EMT daily about certain things and what they're doing, and he just gave me his number. I was up there protesting in Elkview tonight, and I've got his number, and Laura, I also gave him your number, but he said it would be good even if the lawyer wants to hear it. I said I will pass this on to her.
Okay,
This is an older gentleman. He lives in a White House right below the EMT station right there in Elkview. And all he did was telling me so far, he said he watched them girls go outside and smoke and party all the time, but there's other info that he wants to pass on that might be helpful.
So
For
here's what I would ask.
Okay.
Number one, unless Laura specifically says otherwise,
Right.
please stop having people call Laura. This family needs some rest. And I am happy and both disappointed in the fact that Laura is here. Laura, please get some rest. But what I would ask is you tell that gentleman to call my office. I will give his information to our private investigator, and the private investigator will reach out to him.
Well, see, I always call Laura, and that's what I was trying to reach out, and I just left her a message. I did not.
I know, and I know that so many people have such good and huge hearts and such good intentions.
All right, I'll stay away. That's
No,
fine.
no, please don't take that the wrong way, because what happens?
Oh no.
Yeah. Hold on a second. I saw Laura comment something here. Yeah. Everybody is so good intentioned, and the problem is there are so many people that love this family and that love John. They want to convey the information, but because this family is so well and loved, if it were one phone call, that would be one thing, but they're just not getting any rest. And Laura, please, if you want to speak directly to these folks, you're absolutely able to do. I'm not gonna tell you not to by any means, but I hope I didn't hurt her feelings. That certainly wasn't my intention.
No. And Scott, I mean, you've done this for a while. People are emotionally attached, and
Sure.
they have the intentions are so good. Even if if they hear something, they're going to repeat it, but they're not doing it out of bad intentions.
Absolutely not. And they want to help. And
Yeah.
I think that just shows I mean, this family is loved so much, so much.
It's amazing.
It is. It is. And, you know, and I know the family just really, really appreciates this, but it has to be overwhelming. It just has to be.
Excuse me. I'm so
Bless
sorry.
you.
Um,
Yeah, Laura says no malice in her at all, and I believe it, and you know, I wish she would have stayed on a little bit longer, so you know, we could tell her that. But you know, for my purposes, information is, you know, ultimately information that is usable and admissible information needs to come through a certain channel, and one of your investigators are back. Okay. So anyway.
Scott, thank you.
Well, my pleasure, and I'm just trying to get a little bit of information out there, and you know, like I said, I'll be talking some more in the not too distant future. Um, there'll be something published, I believe, in the morning that gives some more detail, and it's on Channel 8 here. So um, just be patient, continue the love for the family. They need it, they feel it. Um, they, I mean, I just don't know how to strong enough convey this. They appreciate it, and it is certainly helping them through, you know, one of the worst times in their lives. And, you know, keep showering this family with your love and prayers and everything you can. But please understand that they are grieving. At some point, they're going to have to figure out what a new normal is. And now, and I don't know if you were on here earlier or not, Laura, but, you know, one of the things that I told them, and like we talked earlier, I put something on my professional Facebook page. We now know exactly what happened. We will probably never know why it happened. And some of the evidence, you know, may very well be subject to interpretation. I have to say, when I saw it for the second time today, I was able to see it with a little bit different eyes. And although, you know, it was hard to see the family see that. I would like nothing more, and the prosecutor would like nothing more than to be able to say, here it is, watch it for yourself. But that's not beneficial to the end goal that we hope to achieve. And Laura, again, I don't know if you were on here or not, but I said, you know, at some point, you all will feel like talking, and you all will talk. You just don't feel like it right now. So
Sorry, I was writing a book in the chat. But I was giving you props, Mr. Summers.
please, it's Scott. Mr. Summers is my dad.
Yeah, I was just saying. I mean, I just wanted to thank everyone for staying connected. I know it's late, and Scott, what I'd said in there, and you may read it or not. Now we know the official word from the family lawyer, and don't buy into all the nonsense, all the sensationalist, and I can't wait till you return to update us. My gosh, man, I am amazed that, look, guys, He's an attorney, and it's after 11, and he's still up working. So there's some good lawyers still out there, and Scott Silver's is one
It's
of them.
actually 12:30 here.
Oh, geez, it is. I don't have my glasses, Scott. It is 12:30.
Yeah.
Holy majoli!
Yeah. And
So
I started very early this morning, but one of the things I saw that, and I mean, I could continue to address things all night long, and I just physically can't do that. But the other thing I want to talk about is people say, why are they, one of them at least, in the Carolinas or wherever they're rumored to be? And that was one of the questions the family rightfully had today. The answer to that is they're entitled to go wherever they want to go. There is no legal obligation for them to stay here until they're charged and until they are living under the terms and conditions of a bond. There is no legal way anyone can keep them here.
And thank God for that, because if you're on the other end of that, getting charged, you would want the same freedom as everyone else.
Right, right. It's the old innocent until proven guilty. I mean, it's the basic fundamental premise of our society. We believe they are guilty. Or I need to stop saying they. I honestly don't know, based on what I've seen today, that there would be any charges that could potentially be brought against the passenger of the vehicle. Again, not a criminal lawyer, not my decision to make. But based on what I saw today, I think it would be very difficult to bring criminal charges against the passenger of the vehicle.
Perhaps you would make an excellent witness for someone. Hey, real quick, last thing, unless you want to continue, I want you to go to bed. Laura Jean, please go to bed. Also, Scott, one last thing. We got into a little debate when we started talking about the case about, they're on the beach, getting a suntan, getting paid. And Scott will back me up on this. If you're working there and there's not an administrative investigation, they're going to suspend you with pay. If they have an administration review or an investigation and find you had violated policies or committed a crime, then that'll change to no pay or termination. Scott, that was one of the big sticking points. Am I correct on what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, and it's a hard pill to swallow. I mean, a man was killed, and there has been no punishment meted out, and then we hear that one of them is hanging out down south somewhere. From a practical standpoint, from a legal standpoint, from a guy who used to defend companies and corporations, if they just suspended them without pay or filed them, they've just bought another, or fired them, they've just bought another lawsuit. And trust me, they've got enough problems with what's coming in this case.
All right. I should just give you my login credentials, Scott, so you can just come and do it, because let me tell you something. I think I read the comments. Absolutely. You're the only guy that has made this much sense on the show since we started February the 14th. You're the crowd's favorite because you come and bring the receipts, but you bring the calmness. And we're grateful for you. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And I may ask for a favor in return at some point. I may need you to tell my all now grown adult kids that I make sense.
You've got dad jokes on TikTok. Come on.
Well, there you go.
What's going on with these kids?
There you
Scott,
go.
You're an absolute complete gentleman. Very rare, one of a kind guy. Thank you. The chat loves you. And Scott, you're welcome here anytime. And if you see something that we're veering off course, come and hit me with something and we'll get back in the center. But we don't want to do anything that would damage the case nor the potential jury pool. So that's a big important thing.
Well, and that's one reason why I signed on tonight, because I hadn't seen it. And, I sent you a message earlier, but I think you were already signed on. And I wanted to